Mr. Ben Feldman, thank you so much for joining us. How are you today?
I am good. Happy to be here in my
Nice.
kitchen.
Well, you were talking about my setup. That's a very nice kitchen, nice and bright. I love it. Well, let's talk about the show, shall we? Yeah, this is a great kind of international comedy mystery thriller. Wanted to talk to you about the sensibilities, the global sensibilities of comedy, because you yourself are no stranger, obviously, to the network sitcom. But you had Trent O'Donnell who directed a few of these episodes. I'm wondering if you noticed that from your Australian comedian directors, is there a different sensibility between American and Australian comedy?
It's a good question, and it was a major concern of mine when I was being the only American involved in any way whatsoever. It was thankfully Trent was a part of it because he's sort of this kind of he's back and forth. He understands American humor and sitcoms, but he's Australian. And I'm so lucky that I had him there because he was almost like an MC for Australia, a host, a maitre d'. But I was very concerned because comedy doesn't always necessarily translate over borders and oceans, and you never know what's going to land over there, what's going to be kind of cringy, what's going to seem boring or derivative or whatever. And so I started when I first came into my life. I started watching a lot of their work, Trent and Phil, who created this show, their comedy, and I was laughing, and I was like, oh, okay, I get it. I get their humor, and by proxy, Australia's humor to a degree, and it's not all of America's humor, but America's a massive country, and we all have our little corners, and their humor very much fits into a few of our corners. And I was relieved because, and then on set, we were improvising and pitching new jokes all the time, and it was like long lost brothers and sisters on the other side of the world. There was no dividing line between the humors, so it was great.
I love that. That's great. Comedy bringing us together. Well, speaking of which, during that time when you were on this network sitcom, you had two of the greatest Canadian teachers when it comes to comedy that you worked with every single day. I'm a proud Canadian. I just want to
Mhm.
hear what you possibly learned about comedy from either Lauren Ash or the icon Mark McKinney.
I mean, I don't even know that what I learned from them was Canadian in any way. What I learned, they're brilliant, brilliant improvers, and in very different ways. Lauren is kind of a bulldozer that will just knock down anything standing in a room with her humor. And Mark is this sort of dorky book nerd humor. Like he can jump into any language or accent or reference the most obscure facts and historical anecdotes. And I mean, it's my brain just doesn't work like theirs. Is that all of Canada? I don't know. I hope so, because that makes it an incredible country. And if things go south here, I'd like to move there and just feel like a boring, unfunny idiot, which is how I felt whenever I was around Mark or Lauren.
Well, I'm going to put you on the spot because you are a very political individual.
Oh
But
boy.
literally, you got to answer this. Okay, you got to pick one. Who's funnier, Canadians or Australians?
Oh gosh, it's so different. My answer is going to be so boring because it's so different. I mean, I grew up on Kids in the Hall. I didn't grow up on any Australian sketch shows. So there's a point to Canada there. I mean, I'm sure geographic proximity has a lot to do with that. But they're very different kinds of humor. I mean, from each other. I think they would all get along, and could exist in the same comedy. But I don't know. I think I can't answer that. I'm not going to answer that. I will just say the Canadian humor has been with me since I was a young child, whether it was Kids in the Hall, or even just what Lorne Michaels created. There was a bigger impact on my life.
That's fair. That's a fair response. One thing we can probably agree on, though, the Olympics proved we are better break dancers. So I'm just
Thank
putting
God.
that out
Which, by the way, fits squarely into your comedy, your oeuvre,
there. That's
because
right.
that
That's
was
right.
some incredible comedy.
What I really find fascinating is that Andy in this show is obviously trying to solve a mystery. He's also a fish out of water. That's kind of part of the appeal of this show. But even
Roles that you've taken, like As Above, So Below, where nobody knows what's going on.
even a character like Jonah, who's kind of overconfident, but obviously is still always somewhat uncomfortable, you seem to be comfortable at playing the uncomfortable. So I'm curious that if that's even a subconscious choice, but do you think that's something that you need to maintain your drive in your performance?
It's a good question. Probably a question for my therapist. I, it's true. Yeah, I would actually say Jonah, I couldn't really, until you said that, I hadn't really thought of a lot of parallels between my experience in Superstore and this, but Jonah was in a very different way. It was a fish out of water, and it was him entering a world that he didn't know that it existed for a long time without him perfectly fine. And a cast of characters that all knew each other and had their own dynamics before he came in and cannonballed into that pool. So there are a lot of similarities there. And yeah, I think I don't know what it is. I think maybe I'm just naturally confused and bumbling and stammering and nervous, and that's where that's how those parts find me. um, I am able to project a lack of confidence, which is probably another thing for my therapist as well. But yeah, I don't go looking for them; they find me.
Yeah, well, you do it extremely well, so I'm glad they found you. You do a funny little mockery. No, I shouldn't even call it a mockery, but you do a little Australian accent in the second episode. I found you have a very good ear for things like accents and impressions. So, can you either give us a tutorial on the perfect Australian accent, or this is one of my favorites of yours, the perfect Al Pacino impression?
Yeah, I do a lot of both of those. In fact, I did a lot of Pacino while I was there. Um, yeah, well, the Australian accent is started to be. Now I can't even get back into it. You asked me a year ago, and it was great, but now, mate, anytime I started talking to them, they're like, "Go do that at home, where they're going to celebrate you because it sounds like shit here." That's a tough accent to do. Another accent that Mark McKinney is incredible at for no reason. Um, Pacino is sort of, you just gotta, every once in a while, you just gotta yell a word. And there's so many different, there's like younger Pacino, there was like when he was, and then there's older Pacino, where you just sound like your voice, you're almost Tom Waits when you're doing it. It's gravel, and it's New York and gravel. That was just, we worshipped in college all Pacino stuff, but we watched Glengarry Glen Ross so much, and would just quote that all the time. So anybody I went to school with has a Pacino, my acting school, we all have Pacino accents.
That's amazing. That's a great tutorial. Well, Ben, thank you so much for your time, and best of luck with the rest of your career if I don't talk to you, but congratulations on Population 11.
Thank you so much. It was great to talk to you.
Hey, Real students, thanks for watching. If you want to subscribe to Real School, click that round Real School logo right beside me. Also, click that damn notification bell so you're aware of all of Real School's new content. You can follow me on Twitter, and of course, if you get anything out of Real School, you can always give a little back. Just click the link in the description below or the button down there, and you can become part of my Patreon team.